Are you struggling with fatigue, anxiety, digestive issues, maybe a little of all of this? Do you find it really hard to relax, to tap into that parasympathetic state where you're resting and recovering? And do you have a hard time saying no, being firm with your boundaries, doing a lot of people pleasing? These are all really common symptoms that we see when you're burnt out or on the path to burnout. And when we notice ourselves feeling this way, we can switch up our diet because this can be really helpful in helping us feel more energized, feel more grounded, feel more balanced when it comes to mood, support digestion. So, making a couple dietary tweaks can be really supportive on just a foundational level. So, let's start there. Well, in today's video, I'm sharing the foods to avoid if you're struggling with burnout and a lot of fatigue. I'm going to share what's worth cutting out and when. And I want to discuss if it's really worth it to do something like an elimination style diet, which can be quite restrictive. Welcome back to our channel, everybody. I'm Danielle Zies. I'm a holistic nutritionist specializing in burnout. And if you haven't met me yet, I'm all about offering real, sustainable nutrition advice so that you can create a lifestyle that allows you to unlock your greatest potential. I'm a mama to a 1-year-old and one of the founders here at the Adrenal Recovery Collective. Here at the collective, we are on a mission to help you get your energy back, on a mission to help you balance your hormones, lose unwanted weight, and uncover and address those root issues in a holistic way so that you can feel normal again and get back to living the life that you've always dreamed of. So, right now, you might be wondering what foods should I cut out if I have adrenal fatigue? And that's what I'm about to share with you right now. So, number one, sugar and refined carbohydrates. So, this is difficult because when we tend to be tired, we crave that quick energy that sugar and simple carbs can bring us. But this can be troublesome because it puts us on that blood sugar roller coaster. So, we're going to have the highs and the lows. And when it comes to stabilizing our energy, going for those high carb foods or those high sugar foods, it's going to feel good for a moment, but then there's likely going to be a crash after. And then it's just hard to stabilize your energy in general. So it's really worthwhile to be mindful of the types of sugars and foods that you're consuming and how much of these things that you're consuming in general. So it's best to avoid or limit foods like candies, pastries, ice cream, soda, those things that just pack a really high punch of sugar and carbohydrate that are going to bring us up and then bring a drastic fall when it comes to blood sugar afterwards. So when we talk about like these really high carb foods, it's not to say that they're all off limits, but certain ones I think are best avoided because it's hard to manage our portions once we get going with certain types of foods. And I'm thinking like cookies, pastries, muffins, cupcakes, ice cream, sodas. With foods like this, even a little can feel like a lot, and it's really easy to lose your willpower when it comes to portions. So it's not to say that foods that are higher in carbohydrates, like noodles and rice and bread, have to be completely off limits. With those, we can manage our portions a little bit more in a balanced meal sort of way. But when we're snacking on these high sugar foods, it's really easy to just kind of lose ourselves. So being really mindful of that is one thing that's going to benefit all of us. And if you're looking for an example, I do have a podcast where I walk you through a typical day of what I would eat in a day if I was super burnt out, with examples and a little bit more guidance around portions. So definitely check that out if you want more specifics. But now back to what I would cut out if I was feeling burnt out when it comes to just what you can do quickly and strategically in your diet right now to start feeling better. Processed and packaged foods. So this is one that we really should be careful with. And like for the most part, when you're doing your grocery shopping, if you just like avoid the middle section aisles where all these processed and packaged like cookies, crackers, instant noodles and stuff are, it's definitely going to serve you. But that being said, we do live in a time now where we have more availability and accessibility to packaged foods that can actually be a bit more supportive. So obviously, it's not like eliminating all processed foods altogether. It's just being mindful of the types of processed or packaged foods that we are bringing into our house. But if you're somebody who's really living off a lot of packaged foods, I feel like that switching to a more whole foods diet and getting some of this packaged stuff and the preservatives out of your diet can actually make you feel so much better. So this is definitely something that I would explore. Number three, caffeine. This question comes up all the time. Do I think that you can recover from adrenal fatigue and burnout and still drink coffee? Yes. Have I seen it be done before? Yes. However, that being said, I do think that a lot of us could benefit from checking our relationship with coffee. For those of you who know me, I definitely adore my like morning coffee ritual, but I will say there was a time in my burnout recovery journey that I had to really get real about my relationship with coffee. It was one of those things that I was doing everything else in the book to like get myself better and avoiding addressing like how much coffee I was drinking because I was like so addicted to it. So, reassessing your relationship with coffee can be huge. So, caffeine can disrupt our sleep. It increases stress hormones. It overstimulates the adrenals. If you're somebody who's really burnt out, struggling with more stage 3 adrenal symptoms, I would say, like, if you could take a little break from coffee, start tindering down, weaning down, swapping for green tea, and then find something to replace it just for a bit while you're on this healing journey, it can be really, really supportive. I do have an Eat for Energy recipe book where I do actually have a whole section on caffeine with coffee alternatives, latte alternatives that are a lot more supportive for your adrenals. But I also have a guide in there for tindering down and weaning off coffee if this is something you want to explore. It's something that I know is really difficult, and you might hate me for saying it, but don't shoot the messenger. It really is something just like assessing that relationship. And even if it's just cutting down, if you have several cups a day right now, that can be something that can be really nice and supportive for you. So give it a try. Has this info been helpful so far? If so, please consider liking, subscribing so you don't miss any of our other videos or content. And if you have a friend or know somebody who could benefit from this info, it means so very much to us as a small business if you'd share it with them. So thank you in advance. Okay, now what other foods would I cut out if I was really struggling with adrenal fatigue and burnout? Number 4 is alcohol. So drinking alcohol can disrupt our sleep, it's dehydrating, it causes inflammation, and it can truly worsen adrenal fatigue symptoms. I mean, I'm sure when I say alcohol, you might feel like, oh, well, maybe that's obvious, but a lot of the times it's fitting into our lifestyle in some shape or form. So really reducing it and ideally eliminating it as much as possible from your like daily and weekly routine would be recommended, especially if you're struggling with a lot of burnout at this time. And I want to share a really interesting example that came to light with a client of mine just this week. And he had recently got one of those watches that just tracks all your different metrics, like a Fitbit, but like kind of like an upgraded Fitbit, basically. And he had been tracking his sleep trends. And this client went away for a weekend, had some drinks with the guys, like had a fun weekend, but he really realized that his REM sleep on those nights when he was drinking at the cottage, it took a drastic drop. He literally had 0 minutes of REM sleep on those nights. And so a lot of the times we think like, oh, alcohol makes me feel tired, makes me sleep better, but it actually the quality of your sleep is not good. And so a lot of people find if they stop drinking at night, the quality of their sleep improves. And this is something when you're burnout, of course, it's going to help with your recovery in such a huge way. So being mindful of your relationship with alcohol and caffeine, being mindful of the packaged and processed foods, watching your sugar intake, those portions and the types of foods that you're consuming, all are going to be super supportive. And the last one, and this is where it's a little bit less specific, is the foods that you are sensitive or allergic to. So a lot of us might have sneaky, we don't even realize it, but sensitivities to certain foods. And sometimes it takes cutting certain foods out if you're struggling with a lot of different symptoms right now to really realize the impact those foods are having on you. So an example I like to share is meat and gluten. So I'm not the type of person who reacts a lot physically to eating gluten. Like I can go out, I can eat a pizza with my friends, I can come home and I feel fine physically. And I didn't notice this until I cut it out and experienced like what life was like without it, was that gluten contributes to my mental state in a way that I didn't expect. Like it makes me more anxious. It makes me a little ragey. Like I feel anger creep in when I have it and it interferes with my sleep. The impact might be profound, but it might not be that profound. So it's up to you to determine, like picking your battles of whether or not it's worth it to keep these foods in your diet and in what capacity. The most common foods we tend to be sensitive to, or the most common allergens out there, are things like dairy, soy, wheat, corn, shellfish, and nuts. So that being said, you can experiment removing those types of foods and see what you notice. But I recommend if you are going to remove them, that you do it for at least 2 weeks to really notice the benefit. And then when you bring foods back in, really paying close attention to what you notice as you bring them back in. So use this as a time to bring things back really slowly, one by one, so that you can determine which foods are causing what sorts of symptoms and then be your own, like being your own detective, you can determine what is a better diet for you moving forward. Or it can inspire you to do some gut work with a nutritionist. So maybe that you don't react in such a way to those foods so that you can eat them more freely, which is what I love supporting people with. It's something that I had to do in my life because I used to be able to really not eat a lot of foods without reacting really negatively. And it took a lot of gut work, but now my diet is much more free. So, long story short, getting more restrictive with foods can be something that is supportive if you're struggling with a lot of complex symptoms right now. And every day people are coming into our coaching program with a lot of complex symptoms. And the thing is like we're all about working with you with where you're at and what is reasonable for you. So sometimes I've started with clients, we do more of a slow, steady build. It's about transforming the lifestyle in a way that feels manageable and sustainable so that you're getting results, but it's a little bit more of a slower build. But then on the other hand, people come in and they're ready for a more drastic change, and we do it overnight. When you work with us in our program, you get a lot of hand holding, a lot of accountability, and a lot of support to support you in making these changes in whatever way feels good for you. But I will say that sometimes doing something like an elimination style diet can get you faster results, and you likely will notice a more profound shift in your health a lot more quickly. One of the diets that I tend to recommend if you want to go this more like hardcore elimination approach is the autoimmune paleo style diet. It's kind of a catch-all because you're really removing a lot of those main common foods that cause inflammation, that trigger the immune system. It's a great way for people with autoimmune conditions to manage their symptoms. But ideally, for a lot of us, we bring the foods back in slowly, like I mentioned, and assess how certain foods make us feel and trigger symptoms. When it comes to the autoimmune paleo diet, you're avoiding foods like all grains, all legumes, nightshades, all dairy, all processed foods, and even eggs. So you can imagine that it's quite restrictive and it requires a lot of planning, but it's one of those things that if you're really struggling, it can be really worth it to do because you'll notice that you feel better. And once you feel better, start using other modalities if you need support, like working with our whole holistic team where you get life coaching, you get nutrition coaching, and you're working with an integrative medical practitioner to assess like your unique case and work on what's required for you to get the most impact when it comes to getting you feeling better again. Then you can work when you're feeling a little bit better, you can work on all those things with a little bit more bounce in your step. So it's pretty impactful, I will say. When it comes to restrictive diets, I find that if we're focusing on the I can't, that it makes it all the more hard. So I want to share with you some of the things that you can eat on the autoimmune paleo diet. You can eat like most vegetables as long as they're not nightshades, fruits, meat, healthy fat, fermented foods, herbs and spices. And so you can see that it's very whole foods. It's very like primal. It's very of the earth, which is a beautiful thing. But if you can focus on what you can have, and like there's so many varieties and options within this list, and then plan some meals, you can actually eat like quite deliciously in quite a satisfying way and in a way that is helping you get rid of symptoms, get your energy back so that you can do more of that deeper healing work or deeper recovery work, especially if you've been feeling stuck. So those are the 5 things I'd considering being really mindful of or removing if I was really burnt out and struggling with adrenal fatigue. I hope this has been helpful and given you some inspiration on what you can change in your life starting today to help you feel a bit better. Don't forget to check out the other podcasts I mentioned where I do walk you through a typical day in terms of meals and snacks if you want more real life examples. But I hope that this gives you a place to start with today. Let us know by sharing in the comments or connecting with us on Instagram. You can follow me directly at Simply Nourished or follow us at the collective at the Adrenal Recovery Collective. And we look forward to hearing from you. And again, if you're struggling to do all of this on your own, if you'd like a really straightforward and proven plan for recovery with coaches by your side and an amazing supportive community to connect with when you're needing any inspiration or motivation along the way, come join us in our Fatigue to Fabulous membership. This is the most accessible way to work with our holistic team and get an A to Z recovery plan delivered to you instantly as soon as you signed up. It is a monthly program, so stay with us as little or as long as you need. But I will say that we have just a beautiful, beautiful recovery community there to support you. You get unlimited access to coaches. You get an incredible proven strategy that will help you get results if you're willing to do the work and follow it. So if you need more guidance, come join us in Fatigue to Fabulous. And once you're inside, there are options to upgrade, to do more testing, to work one-on-one with our coaches if you need more support, to work with our integrative medical team and help figure out the complexities of your unique case. We're seeing so many amazing breakthroughs and healing journeys happening now inside Petite to Fabulous, and we'd love to support you there as well. If you've made it this far and if you found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. And again, share with somebody who needs to hear this. That means the world to us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And it's been Danielle of the Adrenal Recovery Collective, and I'll see you next time.